Chapter 1-1. The battle in hell was over. The elderly man asked if the old woman who was lying next to him was still alive. The woman, Master Kempo, replied to the great sage that she would only die after him. At the same time, she reminded that fools do not die so easily. The great sage admitted that this was the first serious opponent in a long time. The woman agreed because it was not for nothing that he wore the title of the strongest in hell. A voice praised them for their victory, much to the surprise of the tired winners. The stranger reminded him that if the forces of hell had invaded the human world, many countries would have been in ruins long ago. The huge girl thanked them for saving the world from the devil Beelzebub. And since the two of them are now great heroes, then they should be rewarded. The great sage realized that this was a goddess. He explained that they were really fine and just wanted to fight someone strong. The sage said that they are a family of warriors and they are not interested in status or wealth. His wife told the goddess that they would probably only ask for a stronger opponent as a reward. The goddess asked them if they would regret not being able to pass on their skills to future generations, since as far as she understood, they did not have a student or a child now. The great sage replied that of course they would be sorry, but only now there was no one who could withstand their intense training. His wife thought about it and agreed that it was really difficult for them to find a good student. The goddess said that if they did, she would do them a special favor, and just for this night she would eliminate the reason why they couldn't have children. The goddess promised that this night she would restore their youth and they should enjoy each other. The great sage was delighted with the sight of his rejuvenated wife, and the goddess wished them a great night. In the end, after everything that happened that day, the two spent the night together for the first time in 30 years. And after that night, they were blessed with a boy named Yuan. Chapter 1-2. 5 years later, the great sage was training his son and teaching him how to shoot. Yuan used his magic to do everything his father asked him to do. The sage exclaimed that it looked like Yuan was able to master the double spell cast. But in the end, Yuan created a fiery blast of wind, followed by an ultra shot. A huge crater was left after his attack, but my father was not satisfied with the result. He told Yuan that he had 0.02 of a second to spare, but still couldn't blow up the entire area. The great sage explained to his son that many people would have completed this task in their 5 years, so you need to make more effort. Yuan apologized to his father and said that he probably just didn't have the talent. But the great sage still noticed that usually the double cast is mastered only by the age of 7, and therefore the youth is not so talentless. Yuan asked if that was the case, maybe he could still do it. The father laughed and reassured his son and promised that he would definitely succeed. And if Yuan focuses on his studies, he will soon become like most people. My wife asked the great sage how he really appreciated Yuan's magic. The old man said that Yuan was already able to master the techniques of ancient magic, and if he practices a little more, he can destroy the landscape. And in the future, it will even be able to change the world map. And Yuan is really an amazing kid. Yuan's mother admitted that her son was also able to surprise her. She explained how Yuan managed to defeat a huge bear during yesterday's training session. Yuan applied the Eiki principle, and he was able to use the power of the attacking beast against himself. At the same time, his counterattack was incredibly strong. Yuan's mother told him that a simple child can learn this technique at the age of 4, but he only managed to do it at the age of 5. Next, Yuan was able to destroy a huge rock. Mom explained to him that it looked like his chakra was starting to take shape. Yuan explained that he can infuse energy into his nerves and make it easier for him to control his muscles. My mother said that this way you can repeatedly use the power up during a fight. In addition, reflexes and reaction speed in close combat will also increase. All this happens when the chakra is released. But nevertheless, this is something that ordinary children master by the age of 6. Mom praised Yuan for his success in this business, which surprised her son very much. Then my mother suggested that I finish my training for today and go home to rest. His wife told the sage that Yuan had already mastered the skills of Eiki and chakra release at such a young age. And those drunkards from the guild are nothing compared to Yuan, and she is absolutely sure of it. So Yuan really has an outstanding talent that can surpass even their abilities. The mother said that they couldn't let their son become an arrogant person because of his abilities. After all, such people stop striving for anything. The father agreed that they should not let their child go through all this. The mother admitted that for this child, who they gave birth to at such an advanced age, they have no other choice but to take care of him. 11 more years passed during which Yuan was completely surrounded by the love and care of his parents. Chapter 1-3. Uncle Wolf came to visit and told South that he was glad to see him, and they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Yuan greeted his uncle and asked why he hadn't been visiting for so long. Uncle Wolf asked if Master Kempo was at home. Besides, was Yuan really home alone? Yuan didn't know who Uncle Wolf was referring to, since it was the first time he had ever heard the name Master Kempo. Wolf immediately realized that Yuan still didn't know his parents' real names, even though he'd promised them once to keep their true identity a secret. My uncle thanked me for the tea and asked Yuan where his mother was. Yuan explained that his father had gone off to hunt a lizard and his mother had gone to clean up the dirt. My uncle thought about this answer and remembered what he had recently heard, a dragon that destroys everything around it. And maybe Yuan's parents really just made up a reason for him to go on a dangerous mission, so they came up with lizard hunting and mud cleaning. Uncle Wolf also remembered that on the way here, he had seen the garrison of the Dark Knight Order that had come from hell. Uncle Wolf thought it was a coincidence, and it was all just his imagination. At this moment, the parents who immediately called out to Yuan. Master Kempo greeted Wolf and was glad to see him, as they had not seen each other for a very long time. And my father said that he had a very big catch today. He managed to bring a lot of lizard meat. Yuan was delighted with his parents and said that this meat is his favorite dish. Uncle Wolf realized that his parents were still lying to their son, telling him all sorts of ridiculous explanations for my absence. Uncle Wolf asked how Yuan could know whose meat was actually brought from the hunt. Yuan explained that he usually hunts, and the creatures he hunts can shoot fire 20 meters away. That's why he knows that their meat is the most delicious. Uncle Wolf asked the great sage if Yuan, at the age of 16, could really hunt such dangerous creatures alone. After all, it all looks like a joke. Yuan's father replied that it wasn't a joke at all, and that it was true. Master Kempo asked the guest what he was so excited about, and then he apologized for the haste of his request, because he just came to them. Yuan's mom asked Wolf to look at their son's training results. Uncle Wolf hesitated, but agreed. Master Kempo was delighted and explained that they, as parents, are sure that they are judging incorrectly. After all, with any assessment of them, their attitude is still biased, so it is important for us to get an opinion from the outside. After all, it will be much more objective to assess the strength of Yuan. Wolf said that if all he had to do was evaluate his nephew's abilities, then he was ready. Master Kempo thanked him for his help and called Wolf the Prince of Hell. Yuan was very surprised by his uncle's name, but still decided that it was just such a name, and that the uncle wasn't from the underworld at all. Prince Wolf of Hell himself reflected on his decision to test Yuan's abilities. After all, he didn't fully understand what he was supposed to see during Yuan's demonstration of power. Chapter 1-4. Yuan showed his strength, and his father was immediately outraged. He reminded me that he had asked me to completely vaporize this lake. Yuan apologized for not being able to achieve the result. The great sage said that there was still a lot of liquid mud left in the lake, and in general, you need to try harder. After all, even among children his age, there are those who will destroy this lake without leaving a trace. Yuan thought that he must have disappointed his Uncle Wolf with this result. Then Master Kempo asked her son to be more focused and try to destroy the huge rock. But as soon as Yuan obeyed the order, Mom immediately shouted out why he didn't make the round-shaped shards, because such a result is not suitable, and he should have tried harder to make sure that the rock was a smooth pebble. Yuan apologized to his mother for his failure. My mother said that even a 12-year-old child can handle this very easily, and he is already 16 years old. Looking at all this, Prince Wolf of Hell didn't understand what was going on at all. He didn't understand what was going on with Yuan or where his powers came from. After demonstrating Yuan's power, Master Kempo asked Prince Wolf of Hell what he could tell her about their son's power, and what it looked like from the outside in his opinion. The Prince of Hell said that this child is a real monster, and even he himself isn't sure if he can touch it while fighting with his full strength. The parents replied that their son Yuan really looks like a monster in the eyes of ordinary people. But if this is the opinion of Prince Wolf of Hell, then you can trust and listen to it. Wolf reminded him that even though he looked like an ordinary person, he was still truly a Prince of Hell, and he's really impressed with Yuan's abilities. Prince Wolf of Hell remembered how he had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of these two men 40 years ago, and in many ways revised his views on the abilities of the human race. Meanwhile, the parents decided that their son was really worried about his abilities. Prince Wolf of Hell wondered what Yuan could possibly be worried about, because in his opinion, this boy can be called the strongest in the world without exaggeration. Master Kempo explained that Yuan had always lived here, trained and studied, but never ventured out into the open world. But still, he has a dream. Yuan read many stories about the exploits of knights and learned everything that he could only learn from books. And in the end, he decided to become a knight. And just recently, Yuan stated that he wants to pass the knight exams and do something useful for people. Prince Wolf of Hell was surprised and said that if we talk about Yuan, even without a knighthood, he is single-handedly capable of destroying the entire order of the dead. Although parents themselves should understand this. Master Kempo replied that that wasn't the problem. Wolf asked what they really meant then. Chapter 1-5. Yuan's parents explained that they were just afraid to let him go alone, because they believe that his powers are still insufficient for the open world. Prince Wolf of Hell was surprised by their decision and asked what they were even talking about, since Yuan was incredibly strong. But his parents started saying that the city was full of dangers and what would happen if something happened to Yuan. His parents also reminded him what would happen if Yuan suddenly met Lucifer in the city. But the Prince of Hell, Wolf, asked why Lucifer would even appear in the city and why their fears were too exaggerated. Master Kempo said that there is still a danger of encountering Pazuzu in the city. But Prince Wolf of Hell explained that this was also nonsense. After all, such monsters are found only in hell, but in the city they cannot be. Anyway, if Yuan's inexperience was anything to go by, if he suddenly couldn't handle the danger, then he would always be able to run away. Although in such a situation it doesn't make sense to run, because he should have enough strength to deal with any threat. The great sage explained that he didn't want their son to encounter anything dangerous. After all, parents are responsible for their children who have not yet grown up. And until then, they must take care of it and protect it from all the dangers that fill the open world. Prince Wolf of Hell thought that he was too tired and that somehow or other he needed to rest and think things over. Despite their concern, the Prince of Hell finally returned to his home and a week later returned to visit their family. Prince Wolf of Hell arrived just as his parents found out that Yuan had left their home without asking. Wolf was surprised and asked what could have happened in the past week to make Yuan do such a thing. The great sage showed the letter that their son had left. In the letter, Yuan apologized to his parents and explained that his decision to leave his native home came only recently. This happened during a power test when he failed to drain the lake and left mud in it. Also, at that moment, he failed to make the stone fragments smooth. And although this is quite natural for his young age, he realized his weaknesses and realized that his dream was unattainable without gaining true strength. After all, anyone who cannot cope with the usual tasks will never be able to become a knight. And after he thought things through well, he decided to find his own path in this world. And then he came to the conclusion that being raised by two loving parents, he begins to feel like a spoiled child. And maybe that's why he couldn't handle the usual easy tasks. Therefore, he wants to test himself once again in the open world, and that is why he leaves his home to collect his thoughts and go to the city. Prince Wolf of Hell finished reading Yuan's letter and wondered what all this might mean. Wolf told his parents that calling his strength ordinary was not very correct, because in fact, Yuan's abilities far exceeded ordinary people. His parents explained that this was exactly how they raised him so that he would not become an arrogant person. And in fact, from an early age, he learned everything on the fly, no matter what they taught him. That was why, in order to keep him from getting bored when they were training Yuan, they always convinced him that ordinary people could do such things twice as well. Prince Wolf of Hell asked them why they even thought that. And then I thought that their parenting methods were very strange. Chapter 1-6. Prince Wolf of Hell realized that Yuan was an unusually forgetful child, and he also had a complete lack of common sense. And now it is clear that after such a strange upbringing, something can really go wrong. Yuan's parents explained to Wolf that they didn't want Yuan to become a hothead. It didn't matter how talented and strong he really was. Kind of talented people, one day they become arrogant and die. And they, as parents, do not tolerate such people and tried to avoid such a fate for Yuan. That's why they wanted to make it what it is now. And because of that, they kept the whole truth from him, that he could actually use all their magic and kempo. And they, as parents, always convinced Yuan that they were really just ordinary people. Therefore, he never doubted their words. Prince Wolf of Hell asked how they could be ordinary people, if they can easily change the landscape with a single swipe, and also use a magical nuclear bombardment. And to top it all off, the two of them had challenged Beelzebub 16 years ago and defeated him in a terrible battle. And in fact, the two of them are much stronger than all of humanity combined. Yuan's parents asked the Prince of Hell to connect all their connections and help them find their lost son. The Prince of Hell asked if they really wanted to do this because it was ridiculous. His parents were worried about what would happen if Yuan suddenly met Satan himself on his way. But Wolf was indignant and called their parental care idiotic, which is too stupid. The Prince of Hell stated that such inhabitants of Hell do not appear so easily, and they are not so easy to meet. But the parents didn't agree with Wolf, and he thought that if he didn't help them, Yuan might really just get lost, since he was completely unfamiliar with the open world. And if Yuan starts using his magic power, I don't understand the danger. Then it can lead to terrible consequences and even destroy the whole world. As a result, the Prince of Hell promised that he would personally search for Yuan, since in any case, this whole situation cannot be ignored. The Prince of Hell decided that he should find Yuan and tell him about the real situation. And then you need to teach him the basics of behavior and give him at least a little common sense. Yuan just needs to do nothing successful until then, and then everything will be fine. As Yuan continued on, he seemed to hear someone's voice, but then decided that it was just his imagination, and so you should not be distracted in vain. Yuan looked back and realized that he had already managed to cross a huge mountain. And most likely, his parents had already read his letter and apparently they became very worried about him. Yuan thought that once he managed to get stronger, he would definitely come back to them. Yuan decided that first he needed to find the nearest town, and then there would be a plane, and then he would continue on his way. And then completely unfamiliar and new places will be waiting for him. And that's exactly what he needs. After all, his goal is to become a real knight, and for this you need to go a long way. Yuan promised himself that from this day forward, he would do his best to avoid upsetting his parents. Chapter 2-1. It so happened that during the upbringing of parents who loved their son madly, Yuan thought that he was actually a weakling, and that's why he ran away from home. He decided to train alone to reach unprecedented heights. Yuan went on a trip to the city of Amstel, and according to his map, the path lay through the Umaroth fields. Yuan looked at the map and realized that his route would be about 200 kilometers. He decided that it wasn't too far, and it would take him about half an hour to reach his destination with a light run. Yuan noticed a huge flock of birds and was very surprised by their appearance because he had never seen such a thing before. Not long before, on the fields of Yumirat, the commander-in-chief of the army had told his soldiers that they had made the right choice when they joined his glorious army, and therefore they could consider themselves real men. Commander Eddie Movit stated that the Jili's holy empire summoned monsters and occupied their country. And the monsters that were summoned are rank 8 angels, and there were more than 1,000 of them. Eddie Movit noticed that their formation was changing and the angels were preparing for battle. And his forces number only 200 men, and if you compare with the enemy, then of course he is in the minority. The commander exclaimed that it shouldn't be a problem after all, they are the strongest warriors of the angels and are nothing to them. And each of his warriors must kill 5 angels, and then victory will be in their hands. And if they win this battle, they can bring glory to their native lands. Commander Eddie Movit ordered the archers to move into position, and when the enemy approached, they should meet him with a rain of arrows. But then the commander pondered the outcome of this battle. After all, they are really trained soldiers, and they will never be able to lose against humans. But now they face a completely different danger, and not so long ago they lost 12 people and killed just 1 angel. And now these angels are a whole darkness, and the task is complicated many times. And it is clear even for an idiot that even if they manage to exterminate half of the angels, they will still all die in this unequal battle. Commander Eddie Morvat explained that he has to call on his soldiers to go to certain death, and so he can't stay in a good mood when he understands the doom of the situation. But the vice commander laughed at that. And Eddie Morvat asked why he was so amused by this situation. The vice commander apologized for his tactless behavior and said that if you think about it, then all the soldiers already understand everything perfectly. And every soldier is ready to die on this field for the good of his country. After all, each of them wants more than anything to protect what is so dear to them. Chapter 2-2. Commander Eddie Movit agreed with the words of his assistant. Eddie Movit realized that it was clear from the soldiers' faces that they were fully prepared to accept death for the sake of their country. And it turns out that in truth, he's the only one here who lacks real determination. Eddie Movit stated that it is possible that his speech may seem offensive, and therefore he asked in advance to excuse him. But the soldiers shouted back that they had nothing to blame their commander for, and they were with him to the end. Eddie Movit decided that his main task was to bring the soldiers back alive from this whole nightmare. The commander shouted for all the soldiers to follow him. While watching all this, Yuan still asked what rank these angels were. Commander Eddie Movit told the stranger that they were level 8 angels, and then I asked who this guy was and where he came from. But Yuan didn't hear the question and said that since the angels have such a level, then in which case it will not be a problem for him. Yuan was heading up toward a flock of angels, and Eddie Movit couldn't believe the boy could fly. Yuan remembered seeing flying angels as a child. And my mother explained to him then that these are so-called angels, but you need to consider them ordinary birds and, if possible, destroy them. Little Yuan asked if it was really a bird because this angel is very similar to a human. But my mother said that this is really a harmful bird. And such birds are rather machines that simply follow the instructions of their creator without showing any compassion for the pagans. My mother tried to explain that even the most ordinary followers would not be able to escape punishment from the angels. Although this is all difficult for a child to understand. It is important to remember one thing. Angels are bad birds that can devastate villages and bring death to innocent residents. Yuan realized that angels were very bad birds, but he didn't know exactly why they were bad. Mom explained that angels are surprisingly weak creatures, and their rank is not dangerous for ordinary people like them. And to fight them in full force, you just need to use the techniques that she taught him, and this will help you win. Yuan remembered the teaching about his mother and thought that he was actually glad that they were just angels. Otherwise, a guy like him would just be useless in this situation. Although he still did not understand in his childhood why angels are bad, but now seeing everything with his own eyes, their danger comes to him. And since angels are bad birds that can devastate people's villages and kill them, this means that they are common parasites that destroy crops. And every person who is not particularly a genius can understand how much effort it takes to sow and care for the fields. And after such devastating attacks from angels, farmers will find themselves in a very difficult situation, and food residence will not be enough. Chapter 2-3. Faced with a pack of angels, Yuan used ultra-forbidden magic. Yuan decided that whatever happened, he had to destroy the angels, and activated the Supreme Ruler's limitless blade, the Blade of Eternity. After finishing his task, he went down near the soldiers, who were surprised by his actions. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, and Yuan only thought that he had managed to kill all the angels. The last angel left in the sky was Thronus, who did not believe that a master with such power could exist. Although this young man is unusually strong, as for a mere mortal. Eddie Morvat hurried to Yuan's side, seeing Thronus launch an attack. Thronus exclaimed that since he was here now, nothing else could save the people from his wrath. The soldiers and commanders were incredibly frightened, and Yuan only asked who it was that was approaching them. Eddie Morvat was surprised that the boy didn't know who Thronus was. The army commander explained that, to put it simply, the angels Yuan destroyed were rank 8, and Thronus has a 3rd rank, and he is also one of them, but much more dangerous than all the others combined. And his power is comparable to 20,000 angels. Yuan was surprised at the soldier and their commander's fright, and then he remembered that his mother had once said something like that. She said that even if angels were weak, their 1st-rank parent, Seraphim, was incredibly dangerous to them. So if you have to meet him, then Yuan will call his mom and dad, and then they will all easily defeat Seraphim together. How did she explain that if it was a 2nd-rank cherub, Yuan would be able to stand up to it alone? Yuan realized that since this angel was only level 3, it meant that he was completely harmless to ordinary people, and they could easily defeat him. Yuan decided that since this Thronus, who turned out to be the leader of the birds, was only a 3rd-ranked opponent, he needed to destroy him quickly. Commander Eddie Morvat was horrified by what was happening and tried to explain to the guy what danger was coming to him. Yuan replied that he understood everything and could see that it was just some big bird in front of him. Thronus, surprised by the young man's lack of fear, asked if he wasn't afraid of him at all. Well, although this is all completely irrelevant, because all of them who are present on this field will soon die at his hands. Chapter 2-4. Thronus shouted that all mortals would now know the power of his servants. Commander Eddie Morvat exclaimed that these angels were level 6. Thronus claimed that each of his servants was as powerful as 1,000 angels. And even though he didn't want to use their help, it was too late now, and they were out for blood. The servants of Thronus threw themselves down like a stone, but they immediately encountered Yuan's power. They began to cry out in pain and immediately died as they fell to the ground. Thronus screamed, "How is it possible that all the servants are killed at once?" Yuan asked Thronus if he knew what the term avian calamity was. After all good farmers suffer greatly because of his nasty birds that spoil their crops. Even Commander Eddie Morvat himself was surprised by John's words. He didn't understand what other bird calamity this strange guy was referring to. The soldiers were completely bewildered by what was happening. Yuan stated that if the birds dared to attack the village, the soldiers would gather and destroy them all. Yuan asked the commander if he was speaking correctly, but Eddie Morvat did not rush to answer because he could not confirm the boy's confidence in any way. Yuan promised that the birds would be very bad, and therefore they had better get ready and fly home. The soldiers thought at that moment that although the guy was incredibly strong, he was still not completely sane. Yuan never heard back from Thronus and decided that he didn't seem to have a choice. Yuan showed his strength and once again asked Thronus to listen to his words and leave these lands when he returned home. Thronus was surprised by the strength of the unknown guy and replied that this time he would leave. 200 soldiers witnessed this incredible event. In the future, this case will be passed down from generation to generation in history textbooks. and this incident will be called much later as the first encounter with a mysterious life form. And this first appearance of this mysterious higher form of life was precisely in the fields of Umarat. And according to future historians, the name of this mysterious life form remains as the Horror of Umeroda, although at the moment no one even thought about it. Yuan recovered further and thought that it looked like there were a lot of interesting bird species to meet on the way to the city. Yuan realized that his journey was going to be very exciting, and so he had to pack up and get to the city of Amstel as soon as possible. Chapter 3:1. Yuan thought of her parents as she continued on, wondering how they were feeling since he had never been so far away from them. It's been a full week since he escaped, and a lot of things have already happened to him. Finally, Yuan saw the city walls in the distance, and he realized that this was the city of Amstel. Yuan admired what he saw, was surprised by the 3-story buildings and the many people in the city. He liked and admired everything around him. Yuan, still looking at the latest developments in the city, decided that in any case he should first read the information about the local rules. Then Yura's attention was drawn to the wall of ads where he saw information about the tests for joining the Night Order. Jun decided not to waste any time and went to the castle of the city of Amstel, where the tests were organized. The knight announced that since everyone had already gathered, they could start the trial for joining the Night Order. The knight explained that the exam consists of 2 parts. The first is a basic attestation exam, and the second is a tournament among applicants. Upon seeing this announcement, Yuan immediately knew that he had to try to pass this selection. He decided that it was quite possible for him to pass this exam and become a member of the Night Order. Yuan recalled all the information he had read in the books about the Night Order, and he roughly knew what kind of trials he would have to pass. According to the book, the story begins with the main character passing an exam. And now, finally, he had reached the place he could only dream of before. Yuan was thrilled to finally be on the exam. Meanwhile, the other applicants were discussing that he was completely unsuitable for this place because his appearance suggests that he is an ordinary collective farmer. Yuan thought that his strength probably wouldn't be enough to win this tournament. And if this happens, then it will be possible to try again after all. He did not run away from home in vain for the sake of his goal. Therefore, he needs to use his chance as best as possible, not only for his own sake, but also for the sake of his parents. The knight, meanwhile, announced that there would now be a test of the 100-meter run. Yuan was surprised that the test would be so simple. The guy remembered how his mother made him run with a stone weighing 40 tons every day for at least 1,000 laps. The knight announced that Yuan would be called up for the next challenge. Chapter 3:2. Yuan prepared to run as fast as he could, and the knight gave the command to start the race. Yuan looked sadly at the pit behind him and said that it must have happened again. And it doesn't seem to matter where it actually stands, the result is always the same. The knights were panicked at the time. They didn't understand. What could have exploded here? And some of them said that it might even be an enemy attack, because of the dust, absolutely nothing can be seen. Everyone continued to be indignant and try to understand what really happened. Only Yuan stood quietly and remained silent. Then he decided to remind me about himself and said that he had already reached the finish line. But the knight was so annoyed that he told him to just shut up because no one was bothering with him right now. Finally calming down a bit, the knight announced that candidate Yuan had run the required distance in 15 seconds. The knight then ordered everyone to shut up and said that a meteor or something like that must have fallen from the sky. And the exam will continue only after the sports ground is restored. After some time, the knight announced that the next event would be the shot put. He explained that in this test, a core is given and everyone must throw it to the maximum distance. Yuan finally found out that he was actually recorded running for the same 15 seconds. The knight announced that Richard was the first candidate to be called for the shot throw. Yuan was immediately surprised by Richard's huge size and thought that he was completely different from an ordinary person. After that, the knight summoned Yuan himself and then ordered Richard to throw a ball when he was ready. Richard threw the ball with all his might with a loud shout, and the knight immediately began to count the distance. It was stated that the throw was that 20 meters, and it turned out to be the best result for all the times of the competition. All the participants began to praise Richard for such success because they did not expect less from the best military specialist in the city. Yuan tried to draw attention to himself and reminded him that he should throw the ball next. But everyone was so engrossed in Richard that they didn't immediately pay attention to Yuan. Chapter 3:3. The knight continued to admire Richard's result. She asked him what he was doing to build up those muscles because it probably wasn't easy. Richard was pleased with the attention and explained that he was just doing normal strength training and nothing more. The knight began to wonder what kind of training it was, but Yuan still threw a ball, although he was just as impressed with Richard's result. Yuan thought that he felt a little uneasy because no one really cared about his results. But still, he decided to try and throw the ball as far as possible. Yuan launched the ball with all his might, and the soldier who was watching it didn't even realize what had happened. Hearing a loud explosion, the knight decided that there must have been another explosion. She said that it is possible that something strange happens in one day. But in the end, I decided that it looks like another meteorite or some other unknown force fell from the sky. She looked at Yuan and asked Yu when he was going to make his shot throw, but he explained that it was just his throw and why he should try again. The knight didn't believe Yuan's words. She asked if he meant to tell her that this huge explosion was caused by his throw and not by some meteorite from the sky. Yuan confidently replied that it was he who threw the ball into that mountain, and that's why there was such an explosion. But the knight said that this would not pass in her exam, and he should not even hope, and then the knight summoned the next challenger. The other contestants began to mock Yuan. They said that if a redneck like him started coming up with nonsense, then he should have failed the exam. Yuan recalled how he always thought that if he trained hard, he would definitely pass the Knight Order exam. But now something strange is happening. As other participants thought that his result in the race was terrible and the shot throw was considered completely deceptive, as if he just hid the ball and then lied about his incredible throw. Yuan was upset and thought that if it was that simple, then he would definitely succeed. He said that he wasn't lying and did throw the ball. But the knight thought that he simply could not complete the task and announced that candidate Yuan gets 0 points for throwing a shot. The knight announced that the last part of the exam is a magic ball, and it works quite simply. She explained that when you touch it, it responds to each person's magical power. And if the ball starts to glow, it means that the applicant passes the first part, even if the applicant failed the physical fitness exam. Yuan asked that if they didn't take into account the results of the previous exam, then what was the point of doing all the previous tests? The knight explained that recently this country has been focusing on recruiting and training magic knights, so the main thing is not to show yourself with a magic ball. Yuan asked what it meant by magic knights. The exam leader replied that these are unique wars that can use both a sword and magic. And although they don't purposefully encourage wizards to come to this exam. But still, this exam is just designed to identify candidates for magic knights. However, you need to remember that testing with a ball is not as easy as it may seem, and it is only the first step for joining the Order of Knights. Everyone should understand that the ball does not respond to the forces of the average level of magic school graduates, and you need to take this seriously. Many applicants were immediately upset because they had no idea what magic power was. The knight also said that this test is usually used in magic schools when enrolling people with very strong magic power. Listening to all this, Yuan wondered if he was strong enough to pass such a test, since he clearly didn't stand out like that. The knight announced that since everyone understood everything, candidate Yuan would be the first to be called for the test. Yuan went to the ball and realized that he had nothing to lose because he had almost come to terms with his complete failure. But to the surprise of everyone present, as soon as he took hold of the ball, there was an explosion and hundreds of fragments flew apart. Chapter 3:4. The participants of the competition began to discuss whether there were not enough explosions for one day. Yuan asked the knight what he should do now that the ball was destroyed. The knight in turn thought that the explosions that occur during the exam can't just be an ordinary coincidence. The knight began to compare the facts and gradually began to understand that the reasons for all the explosions are most likely the same, and they are connected to this young guy, as strange as it may seem. The knight examiner exclaimed that Yuan was an extraordinary newbie, and now he should surprise everyone in the final exam. Yuan didn't understand anything she said, but only asked what to do with the broken ball. The knight explained that Yuan passed this exam because the ball reacted and lit up. And if you do not go into the details of what happened, then you need to understand one thing: there is no explosion without fire. Yuan was impressed by the knight's words because he really thought that the ball exploded only because it was defective. The knight announced to all the applicants present that candidate Yuan had successfully passed the first part of the exam. Yuan shouted with joy that he had been waiting for this for a very long time. He couldn't quite get over it, he thought, because he was so happy to hear about his success. So his luck is also an incredible power. Yuan then decided that he needed to prepare as best as possible and show his best side in the next stage of the exam. The commander of the Knight Order stated that as many as 16 rookies had passed this year, and now they will have to see what these newcomers can do in the future. It is worth noting that all the newcomers are quite promising applicants, and Richard is proof of this. After all, he is the winner of the fencing cup, and his style of ball possession is impressive, and in the overall standings of the first part, he leads by a large margin. Then all those who passed the first part were asked to come to the draw. The Knight Order commander said that after passing the exam, he personally wants to train with Richard. The Knight examiner agreed that this was a good idea, but asked that while the exam was still going on, she should behave properly as a commander should. Yuan found out that the second part of the exam is the Challenger tournament, and now it remains to find out who will be his opponent in this battle. After all, some say that the commander himself will participate. The commander promised that he would show off his style well because it is the style of the best knight in the country. And the knight examiner thought that for someone of this rank to only think about one thing, it was like mastering swordsmanship to perfection and training newbies. The commander thought that Richard would be his best opponent this year because by all indicators he is the best of this selection. And now it remains to find out who will be Richard's opponent in the training battle. Yuan pulled the name out of the box and revealed that the first match would be between Richard and Yuan. The commander became indignant because Yuan is still a real child and Richard will not be able to show all his strength with him. So why hold such fights that will not show all the skills? The vice commander suggested that we just look at it and then draw conclusions based on the result of the match. The second stage of the exam was decided to be held in the arena because this is the most suitable place for a duel. Yuan thought that the most dangerous thing was that his first opponent was Richard. In general, you need to win 3 times to get to the final. Richard asked Yuan if he was his opponent. Richard said that for a weakling like Yuan, his results weren't that bad. Yuan, in turn, estimated the size of the opponent and decided that this guy looked incredibly strong. Yuan mustered up the courage to shout, "He will definitely become a knight of this order, no matter what." But Richard replied that such a result was unlikely to be achieved for a weakling like Yuan. After all, it's completely ridiculous that such a short person can beat him. Chapter 3-5. Yuan decided that the knight's heart should help him in battle. After all, it helps the weak to fight the strong, and just such a knight he dreamed of becoming, noble and honest. And Richard looks like a real knight because there really is something strong and domineering about him. Richard asked if Yuan was okay and why he was shaking. Yuan decided that he should take this chance and fight an opponent who was much stronger than him. And in the end, he must meet defeat with dignity without losing his pride. Yuan was determined that this would be his first loss. But after that, he will be ready to accept his defeat, and at the next opportunity, he will definitely become stronger. Richard looked at his opponent and said that Yuan seemed to have calmed down and wasn't worried anymore. Richard asked Yuan to show off his style before their fight so that he could understand what he was capable of. Richard explained that if he knew Yuan's style, it would help him avoid unnecessary injuries. Yuan thought that Richard was actually worried about a weakling like him, and this was really a display of true nobility. Yuan decided that he should listen to his opponent and show him his full strength. Yuan said that he understood and asked me to go easy on him. Richard barely noticed Yuan's movement and was surprised, as this was something he had only seen in the training arena. Richard said that only Eastern ninjas are proficient in this step, and it is they who create the illusion and then suddenly attack the enemy. And this is a special shadow skill that is very difficult to use. Richard had heard that real ninjas can create one shadow and incredible ninjas can create two. But what this young man has created is simply unthinkable, because now there are 27 shadow clones around him. Yuan picked up the right moment and shouted that this was his strongest blow. What I saw surprised everyone who was in the arena, because it was partially destroyed. Yuan looked at the surprised faces of the people and wondered why they were looking at him so strangely. Richard said that he now understood Yuan's true strength and asked to be reminded of his name. Yuan introduced himself to his opponent, and Richard suddenly said that he was leaving this country to Yuna. Big Richard exclaimed that he thought Yuan was the best of them all. Richard asked the knights, did they really think he was a fool to put such a monster Yuan in front of him? Then the commander himself said that this kid is clearly stronger than him, and this is amazing. The commander said that with the appearance of such a monster, his title of the strongest knight would definitely be in danger. The vice commander reminded him that his title of strongest knight would eventually pass to another person anyway, because it was inevitable. But the commander, not hiding his anger, asked him never to say that. He explained that it was too much for him. Indeed, it is only a matter of time before his title of strongest knight is taken away. After all these new recruits of the Magic Knight Order are a danger to his status. The commander admitted that he did not expect that this could happen so early and he would lose his title. The commander said that he had come up with a solution, and now everything will definitely be fine since he will accept this guy into his order of knights. Yuan will work for the Knight Order, but at the same time will be a member of the Magical Order of Knights. After all, this guy fortunately wants to become a knight himself, and as long as he is a knight commander, he can give his word that this will be the case, and everyone will accept his beautiful opening speech. The commander thought that this guy would absolutely become the strongest knight in the kingdom, and if he is in its ranks, then there will be no fear for maintaining his current status as a peerless commander of the Knight Order. After all, the strongest knight in the kingdom will only work for him. And even that's not all. This guy's strength is comparable to the devil of the 6 heavens, and everything will definitely be fine, so he will take this kid to his order. The commander decided that in this scenario, he could even count on an increase in his status, and this is an excellent prospect. Therefore, you should not deviate from your plan, because it will bring a lot of benefits. Yuan's next opponent gave up without a fight and declared his unwillingness to fight. As a result, Yuan was declared the winner of the 3rd victory. Yuan was surprised by all this because in the second match, his opponent did not even appear, and Richard had given up for some reason he didn't understand. Yuan thought about it and decided that Richard just didn't want to participate in this whole farce because he was the one who was the opponent for him. Since Richard had decided so, the others followed suit and didn't want to fight him after seeing his full strength. Yuan looked at the challengers and realized that they were all quite strong opponents, but it's not clear why they refused to fight him. All this is very unpleasant because they consider him unworthy to fight them. Yuan asked all the participants to take him seriously and give him a chance to fight one of them. Yuan explained that he was really only capable of such childish tricks, but he came here because he always dreamed of becoming a knight, and that is the most important goal in his life. Chapter 3:6. Yuan began to ask for the opportunity to pass this exam, but only honestly, so that no one would apply to him. But all the contenders ran away and shouted that they would never fight him in this life or the next. Yuan tried to catch up with someone and kept asking them to fight him in the arena, but no one would listen to him. The boys shouted that they were giving up without a fight and didn't need to run after them at all, because Yuan's level was completely unsuitable for such an ordinary entrance exam. Yuan was desperate and decided that he was so small and insignificant that everyone just hated him and therefore didn't want to fight him. The commander asked if he understood correctly that his name was Yuan. The commander then asked Yuan not to bully other applicants. Yuan was surprised and startled when he saw the knight commander standing next to him. Yuan said that he didn't intend to bully anyone at all. The commander then said that he had already seen enough and that Yuan's exam was over, and he passed it successfully. Yuan couldn't believe this success. The commander said that a position in the Order of Knights is already waiting for Yuan, and now Yuan will be assigned to a new unit. Yuan suddenly realized that he was so pathetic to everyone that he wasn't even worthy to pass the exam like everyone else, and so he's a real loser. Yuan realized that he had already shown his real strength, and the commander must have concluded that he was defeated. And of course the commander knows that he is unemployed and has absolutely no talent. And even so, the commander was very kind and decided to give him a job. Yuan replied that he understood everything and was happy with the commander's suggestion. The commander was glad that the simpleton had taken the bait. Yuan said he had one request to make. Yuan explained that even a technical win is still a win, and so he wants to take advantage of the privilege of winning the tournament and was happy to fight the commander himself. Yuan admitted that just passing the exam with a technical victory would be a complete disappointment for him, and that's why he wants to fight someone for real, so that he can hit them with all his might. The commander, afraid of such a prospect, hastened to explain to Yuan that there was absolutely no need for this. Yuan stated that if his first step on the path to knighthood ends up being such a shameful test of his abilities, then he will simply fall into terrible despair and no longer worry about the consequences. The commander didn't understand at all what Yuan was trying to tell him, but it didn't matter. The commander suggested that Yuan calm down first. After all, he couldn't have imagined that Yuan was so obsessed with this exam. And does he really want to pass this exam, no matter what? Yuan replied that this is exactly the case, because otherwise he constantly feels some kind of dissatisfaction, and he really needs to show his true strength by using his body and soul to improve his skills later. Yuan exclaimed that what he wanted most was to fight a real opponent with all his strength. The commander replied that he was very unwell and maybe someone else could help Yuan. But as one, everyone shouted that they had already given up long ago, and there was no way they would compete with Yuan. Richard reminded him that the commander was the best knight in the order. Yuan shouted that now he wanted to fight him even more, because this was a great opportunity to show his strength. Yuan began to ask the commander to fight him, and the applicants supported Yuan. The commander was furious and called them scum. He realized that he was in grave danger right now. Then he asked the vice commander to say something quickly. But the commander realized that she had gone somewhere, and now he had absolutely no options to get out of it. The commander felt as if his entire life had passed in one moment and asked Yuan to wait a bit. But Yuan was already tired of waiting and said that it was time to start a duel with the commander of the Knight Order. Chapter 37. The commander imagined Yuan's fist reaching its target and decided that it was definitely the end. The commander was overcome with fear and froze, and Yuan thought that he had closed his eyes in this situation on purpose, showing his contempt. Yuan realized that the knight commander didn't want to fight him seriously, even after all his requests and persuasions. Yuan asked if he was really so unworthy of a fair fight with the commander of the Knight Order, and if they really want to show him this all the time. Yuan stated that this means that he now needs to train even harder to become worthy, and if that's all it takes, then he's ready for a grueling workout. Yuan said that the time spent on this exam was educational. Then he thanked the commander for his instructions. Yuan promised that he should take his mind off his failure and therefore go into training with his head. For the sake of improving his strength, Yuan decided to go and see the strongest person he knows. After saying a quick goodbye to Commander Yuan, he set off. The commander didn't understand at all, but he was glad that he had managed to save face. After all, he really had already said goodbye to both his title and his life. The commander just laughed and asked who this guy who doesn't know his own strength really is. And where did it even come from with such an abnormal power? After all, its strength is at the level of a secret punitive device at the state level. The commander decided that if he understood everything correctly, it would be very stupid to continue such information. Because now there is a chance that the existence of this guy can become a global event. And so it's time to go to His Majesty. After all, you need to share such news with him. But suddenly, a voice behind him ordered the commander not to talk about the incident outside of the night order. The commander was indignant and said that you should not talk to him like that, but immediately fell silent when he realized that the Prince of Hell Wolf was in front of him. The Prince of Hell himself was upset because he had already thought that he had found Yuan, but he had disappeared again. The commander wondered why Prince Wolf of Hell had come to such a place. And although of course everyone knows that recently the demons stopped attacking people, and Wolf has long advocated peace between humans and demons, negotiating constantly as a representative of Hell. And if that kid has anything to do with the Prince of Hell, if he's looking for him. The commander asked Wolf what he had just said. The Prince of Hell reminded the commander that he must not tell anyone about what had happened to Yuan. And if somehow the commander lets it slip and violates this order, then it will destroy not only his body, but even his soul will turn to dust. Wolf then promised that if the commander was quiet, they would certainly not disturb him. After all, in fact, although he is a demon, but a very peaceful person. The commander thought that such threats were absolutely not funny, especially if they came from the Prince of Hell. Wolf asked what the commander would say about Yuan. The commander immediately promised that this secret would remain with him for the rest of his life. The commander explained that he was still in his right mind so as not to contradict the Prince of Hell. Wolf praised the commander for making the right decision. The Prince of Hell himself thought that there wasn't a single word to explain Yuan's naivete with the world. The Prince of Hell explained that due to some circumstances, he tried to find Yuan for a long time, but ended up being late again and couldn't catch up with him. And does the commander happen to know where Yuan might have gone? The commander replied that Yuan had said before he left that he wanted to see the strongest man in the world. Wolf thought about it and decided to tell Yuan's parents about it. The great sage asked why Wolf had not returned their son as they had requested. The Prince of Hell explained that he had no idea where this strongest man in the world was, and he didn't even have the slightest clue about it. Yuan's mom reminded him that they had already talked about how Yuan thought of them as ordinary old men who practiced a little magic and kempo. And so, of course, he will not return home to the strongest people on his own. The great sage explained that knowing all this, Yuan could be proud of such parents, and therefore they deliberately did not tell him anything. Wolf told his parents that they had gone too far and had long since destroyed their son's pride. And now, their Yuan had surpassed all the imaginable and inconceivable limits of the human body. And even in the fields of Umarath, he personally saw a whole flock of angels destroyed by Yuan. Rumors were already spreading about a strange man with incredible strength. The parents became worried and shouted that their son was really facing the first rank of an angel. It's very careless of him. But Prince Wolf of Hell called them stupid parents and asked them to let him finish. But the parents were hard to calm down, and Wolf wondered if it wasn't the great sage, then who could Yuan consider the strongest person, and where did he go to look for him? Chapter 4.1. The daughter of the venerable Count Perrin, who is only 16 years old, although to be more precise, she was the daughter of an earl, but that time has already passed. A few days ago, her home was attacked by hired killers, and all the knights who guarded her family were killed, and she was the only survivor. Her beloved father, the Count, had suffered a terrible death. Perrina and her maid were trying to run away from their pursuers, But they did not succeed because how can ordinary people escape from a group of professional assassins? The assassins did not kill the girl, as it turned out they had orders to bring her as a slave. Thus, she was the only survivor of the family and only to become a commodity in the slave market. The moment the assassins attacked the manor, her father, the Count, was shouting that the Treaty of the Holy Empire. It doesn't matter though, since he's dead and his family's been destroyed. Purina felt guilty and hurt because if she had had the strength and courage at that moment, it might have been different. Then Purina noticed a strange girl and their eyes briefly met. The stranger asked if there was something wrong with her face. Purina couldn't understand why this girl was sitting in this cage with her even though she was holding a sword. The girl said that if Perrin was interested in her sword, he could ask her anything. Purina asked the stranger why she was sitting in this cage with her. After all, it is obvious that she is the daughter of some family, just like her. The girl replied, "It's just very boring, and so she's just an ordinary adventurer. And she is in this cell because this is her task. Provide security and follow up on the parcel, so it is also in the cage in the place with it." Purina was upset at being called a package, as if it was already just a thing. Then she asked her security guard if he was really just someone's cargo. The stranger replied that she had only heard about how a precious masterpiece would be sold by an exquisite collector, and who they were knew what they meant by that. The girl asked Perrin if she could ask her a question. Chapter 4-2. The adventurer asked what kind of sores Purina had on her hands if they might be from sword training. Purina explained that even though she looked like an ordinary count's daughter, she still had some practice with the rapier, and she was even part of the 8 women's national team in the imperial capital. Although it is difficult to call her a veteran, but she was confident in her fencing and often won duels. Many even called her a child prodigy and praised her a lot. Then Purina remembered that at the most crucial moment she hadn't been able to prove herself. She said that it didn't matter at all right now and that her life was already in the past. The adventurer said that her understanding of package security is only part of the job and she has nothing wrong with Purina. Then a strange noise was heard and a voice outside ordered the girl he named Terentia to get to work. The coachman shouted that they were being attacked by an assassin and Terentia reacted instantly to the danger. After fending off the assassin's attack, she said what it meant to be a samurai and that he was skilled enough. Purina realized for the first time that she was actually being guarded by a woman. And yet she was very beautiful. Terentia ordered Purina to get out of the cage immediately because it could be very dangerous. And if she falls under a magical attack while in that cage, she will definitely die on the spot. Purina realized that there was no time to think, and she needed to listen to Terentia's words. Purina thought that even if she was inexperienced in this form of martial arts, she could tell that it wasn't easy to kill all these people alone. And this means that the samurai who attacked is definitely a very strong warrior. Terentia said that maybe she was wrong, but it seems to her that the samurai is one of the members of the subway. The samurai replied that this was exactly the case and that his name was Katutese. The samurai claimed that he came here to pick up the lady behind him. Terentia said that she had heard the name of this samurai before. She remembered that the samurai's name was Thousand Slayer and there was a big bounty on his head. After all, he's actually a tramp from another country. Katutese replied that Terentia was right about him and that he had been following the path of the sword for more than 30 years. And all he wants in his life is to fight against stronger opponents. After all, this is his path as a swordsman, and this is the best thing that he can do in his life. Terentia just laughed at his words and said that it was an incredible coincidence. She explained that in fact their goals are similar, and this is possible because serving the imperial court and the guild involves excessively strict rules. Terentia said that because of this, she cut off all her ties and now hunt only strong opponents. And in recent years, she has trained herself to fight the strongest opponents where her own life was at stake. Chapter 4-3. Terentia Po, your opponent, wholeheartedly enjoy this wonderful duel. Katutese realized that this girl was indeed exactly the same as himself. Therefore, you need to fight at full strength. Terentia asked him if he understood correctly that Katu Tese used the art of ball possession that was passed down in the East as Jinjin Ryu. Katu Tese replied that his swordsmanship style is not typical Jinjin Ryu, and in fact, he has surpassed this style and owns the Takai style. And if you put it any other way, he has Mankaden. Purina, watching the duel of such masters, was afraid and did not understand what to do in this situation. Making a deceptive maneuver, Terentia replied to the samurai, everything is clear to her, but she can also boast of her Mankaiden. Katu Tese asked if Terentia really had the same technique. The girl replied that her technique was called the completed demonic style of Hei's ninjutsu. Katu Tese realized that Terentia had used a decoy double against him, and immediately decided to repel the attack. But Terentia said he was too slow to keep up with her. Then she asked how Katu Tese really thought about how many times she could attack him from behind. But the samurai did not respond and shouted and charged. Terentia was back again and said that if she had wanted to kill Katu Tese, he would have been dead at least 10 times already. The samurai attacked again and Terentia asked him to show the real power that he has. Katu Tese was surprised by the girl's confidence and replied that there was no reason for him to show his full strength. He tried again to stab Terentia with his sword. Chapter 4:4. Terentia reminded him that she had already mentioned that it was too slow for her. After finishing the battle, Terentia said that they were both warriors who were trying to become stronger after the fall of the Asura realm. Terentia said that since she won, there should be no hard feelings because only the strongest can stay alive. Purina was thrilled by what she saw and wondered who this incredible woman really was. The slaver said that he expected nothing less from her since she was the master of Terentia's sword. He admitted that he was very happy that he hired her to work because he was unharmed after such an attack. And that samurai was a famous big shot in the underground guilds, and it's incredible that Terentia was able to take him so easily and defeat him. Terentia replied that she had also heard a lot about this samurai. Although his Takai-style swordsmanship was excellent, it is no longer as good as it was said to be, and that is now quite clear. The slaver asked if he seriously thought that he was weak. Terentia replied that she now knew for certain that there was no one who could match her in battle. The slaver did admit that Katu Tese was still quite good with his sharp blade. And although the items that were found during the quest belong to the person who assigns it, still Terentia must take this blade for herself, and he would go while he calmed his horse. The slaver explained that this sword could be worth quite a lot and Terentia would definitely find a good use for it. Terentia decided that in that case she would do whatever she wanted with this sword. The adventurer handed the sword to Purina and said that she had a choice here, and now submit or resist. And if she's ready, then her hands should be ready for battle. And if she chose the path of survival without even trying to fight as a mere swordswoman, she would simply die an inglorious death in the future. She doesn't care though, because this is Perrin's life. Terentia asked what choice the Count's ex-daughter would make. Purina wondered what the woman meant by all this. And does she really want to give a chance to win her freedom by using this katana to achieve her goal? Purina thought that this blade was completely different from the rapier she was used to using. But it is still a weapon that can kill in the right hands. And when her estate was attacked by assassins, her father still fought without giving up, even when the chances of victory were very slim. And her father remained the head of the Count's family until the very end, never dropping the sword from his hand. Purina realized that she had the blood of the Count's family in her, and she forgot about it and obediently turned herself into a slave. And even if this fight, in which she has no chance, will be the last, it still has to happen. Chapter 5:1. The Calamity level was a group of demons that were summoned by the ancient people from the underworld and used in wars. In those early days, summoning magic was far superior to modern magic, and the power of demons was extremely high. However, the monsters that were extremely powerful were completely out of control, causing the world to continuously fall into chaos. This summoning magic was called the Forbidden Art. As a result, it was decided that people should no longer remember him. Anne arrived at the Nishigan Guild and asked if there was really a need to subdue a demonic magic bear here. The guild manager explained that a lot of things had happened in the village nearby. And from there, a request came in to subdue a magic bear from this place, but he can't handle it since his hands are already busy with many important things. And the knights also refused to help, and if there were a couple more of them, they would not be inferior in strength to the demons, but now they just did not want to do it, and it is not at all clear what the bear lost in this village. After all, usually the monster should not appear so often in front of our eyes, and perhaps this is because now is the height of the mating season for animals. Although no one knows the exact answer to this question and can only assume. The guild leader asked if Anne was really confident that she would be able to complete this dangerous task. Otherwise, this village will simply disappear. Anne replied that she was ready to look into the matter and would deal with the problems in the village. After all, defeating demons had been her main goal ever since she became an adventurer. The guild leader thought that despite all this, he had a bad feeling about it. And the village head decided that it was strange why after encountering this silver-haired boy. They should have gone to a safer place because their village was right next to the bear den. But it was amazing to know that such a huge bear could even exist in this world. People were fleeing because this bear was twice the size of any ordinary magic bear. And although people tried to calm down the panic, it did not work very well. The head of the village told residents that they need to get out of the forest as soon as possible. In fact, people thought that the bear had already left, and no one could understand why it came back. And anyway, how can this magical giant bear speak a human language? The bear claimed that the humans were just a bunch of useless goblins who didn't know a damn thing about him. The bear told the people that they were insignificant fools who gave him the demon king of the monster calamity class the moment they were defeated. People were horrified to hear terrible things from the past. After all, once they really heard about monsters with that name. The village head remembered that he had heard about the monster demon king. Well, that was back when he was young, and all the events were in the distant past when the demon of horrors of the whole world was able to kill 1,000 knights in an instant. Chapter 5-2. The demon said that it had been several thousand years since it was sealed, and he was pleased that people still remembered it. The village head, listening to the demon, couldn't believe all this nonsense after all. He had always believed that the calamity class was just an element of folklore. And why did it happen that this terrible demon was in front of him? The demon admitted that he was thrilled to think about eating all the people for breakfast, but then at some point he changed his mind. The demon offered people a choice. He suggested that the village head choose a victim here and now, and then he would leave half the villagers alive. And if he doesn't choose anyone to be the victim, then everyone will die. The head of the village did not know what to do, and the people felt panic and fear of imminent death. The demon advised the village chief to simply choose the elderly and children. After all, in the end, they will still be able to conceive other children. The village head glanced at his daughter and decided that this was some kind of absurdity. But for all the deplorable situation, they don't have the means to fight such a huge demon. The village chief was considering what to do. After all the options are terrible in their own way, and no matter what choice he makes, it will be a crime against his people, even though it's possible to save half the people. The chief turned to the demon and asked if he really wasn't lying about everything he said. The demon replied that he would keep his promise. The chief, after some thought, decided to make a terrible choice, to sacrifice half of the inhabitants. At this very moment, Terentia attacked a huge magical bear. But the first attempt was not entirely successful, and the girl said it was worse than she expected. Although it's quite normal for a calamity-class monster, they are incredibly strong. And such a monster cannot be defeated with just one blow, even if it is as unexpected as she did. The demon growled that he hadn't seen her here before, and who the hell was she to dare attack? The girl said that she was the hero of Taranti, and it is she who will kill the terrible demon from the past. Magic Bear Heroes now is nostalgia. Terentia was surprised that the hero title was effective even against the Bear Emperor. And so far, everything is working in her favor since the one whom she has mentally cornered is more prone to mistakes. Although it's still unclear why the Bear Emperor ended up in this particular place. She had heard that this Calamity-class monster could only be summoned by using otherworldly summoning magic. And could this mean that someone deliberately summoned him to this world? But in any case, the life of the villagers is now most important. Terentia ordered the villagers to immediately run away, and she promised to take care of the monster. People grabbed their things and ran away, thanking Terentia for her heroic act. And the emperor yelled that he wouldn't let them escape. After all the devil bears under his control and the inhabitants will be destroyed on his orders. But unexpectedly, the Bear Emperor devil bears in the forest can't hear him at all. The Bear Emperor realized that all of his services were dead, and it was Hero who destroyed them. Although as for the descendant of a glorious hero, she did as she should. Terentia didn't understand what the Bear Emperor was even talking about because she just came here. Terentia thought that it was a real stroke of luck to meet such an opponent, because now he was completely focused on her. And right now, she just needs time for all the villagers to escape as far as possible. Terentia shouted that of course, she was a very unusual hero. After all, for as long as she can remember, she was taught martial arts by all sorts of masters, and she came to conquer the Bear Emperor. And she really is a real and most powerful hero. Emperor Medvedev agreed that she was probably the most powerful monster hunter among humans. And if such a famous hero came up against him, then he should become a worthy opponent and show all his power. Emperor Bears rushed to attack, and Terentia was surprised at how sinister the monster is against her, and therefore you need to use your fighting spirit. Morale is a skill that increases your physical abilities. There are also martial arts where internal strength is concentrated to perform movements, and there are 7 types of fighting spirit in the world. There is a dragon among them, a saint and an evil one, and it can only be used by truly strong people. Terentia decided it was time to show her fighting spirit. Bear Emperor, how pure is the holy fighting spirit surrounding this hero. And now they're both ready for battle. Terentia shouted that it was time to start. She decided that she had to break the balance of the Bear Emperor first. The huge monster himself said that her attack was too simple. The Bear Emperor crushed Terentia with a huge paw and laughed with joy as she received a direct hit. Terentia decided to seize the moment and used the Kuma ninjutsu style and charged at the Bear Emperor. The demon roared in pain and realized that this girl had not only managed to create many clones of herself, but had even managed to inflict grievous bodily harm on him while he was covered in an evil fighting spirit. Terentia stated that she was also different from the Bear Emperor's previous opponents, as she was now completely balanced with the holy fighting spirit. Her one hit on the Eastern Hedge martial spirit technique would surely pierce through the monster's flesh. The Bear Emperor saw Terentia launch an attack at me, but he was unable to follow her movements because his eyes were not capable of such a thing. Before delivering her final blow, Terentia used the evil god who takes revenge technique and then brought down the endless blade of the warrior god. Terentia decided not to stop and threw a few more punches while she still had the chance. The Bear Emperor roared in pain and anger, not understanding how this girl was able to reach such a speed. Terentia, seeing that the Bear Emperor was hit by her blows, used a flash of her storm sword. She screamed that people like this demon wouldn't be able to follow her movements. The Bear Emperor himself applied the demonic style and activated the Black Guardian. Terentia realized that the enemy had increased their already high defense, and so she would have to spend some more time killing them. Terentia said that all her words that she said before were true, and he really is a real hero. She used top-level fire magic and struck the Bear Emperor with a scarlet flash. Screaming in pain, the great demon couldn't believe that this girl could even use magic. Terentia reminded the Bear Emperor that she had indeed learned all kinds of martial arts. But the evil demon claimed that its defense wasn't just for physical attacks, and this fiery explosion wouldn't even scratch its fur. Then the Bear Emperor was surprised that the hero had suddenly disappeared. He realized that Terentia had only used this explosion to create a smoke screen. Terentia said it didn't matter how high his defense was. And the most important thing is that the inside of its mouth is too weak. Terentia threw a punch and simultaneously used the evil god takes revenge on country art, and then with the help of Lone Moon, she reached her goal. The Bear Emperor was dead, and Terentia said it had been a long time since she had fought such a powerful opponent. And if she can even defeat a Calamity-class monster now, it's no problem. It's all thanks to the hellish training she's been through for a long time. Therefore, she can justly consider herself the strongest hero among humans. But suddenly, the Bear Emperor rose up from the ground and began to roar wildly. Terentia couldn't understand what the hell was going on. After all, she had definitely just defeated him and he was dead. The Bear Emperor stated that you should always keep an ace up your sleeve until the very end. But still, it's a huge honor for her, because she managed to do the incredible thing, get him to get serious and take on this new form. Terentia was horrified by the evil demon's abilities and realized that it had also used gigantification. And it's not at all clear what kind of fighting spirit he used this time. And most likely it is not only the fighting spirit, but perhaps even the ability of a dragon. Although it's theoretically impossible to use multiple martial spirits at once. And the only ones who can do this are the members of the disaster class. The infernal demon laughed and asked what had happened to Terentia's face and where her confidence had gone. Although he is surprised by her incredible speed, Terentia decided to draw her sword as quickly as possible. But for some reason, her body stopped moving. Terentia realized that she didn't even know the difference between their strengths and capabilities, and she also understood that she couldn't just cross swords with him. A huge paw hit the ground and Terentia was able to jump out of the way at the last moment. The force of the blow stunned her, and she realized that she still didn't seem experienced enough for such confrontations. And in fact, she has nothing but her sword. There is no family, no relatives. Of course, she had heard that her parents, right after she was born, went on a mission with the entire clan to subdue demonic creatures, but in the end, they were all destroyed. And the only reason for her life was the hero's blood. That was why she had studied with many martial artists who came from all possible fields. Her goal was to achieve more martial arts. But things didn't go according to plan after the demonic creatures destroyed everyone. All she wanted to do was restore the honor of her clan, and now that was in jeopardy. The infernal demon said he wouldn't kill Terentia right away. And for daring to stand up to him and making him so angry, she would serve a different punishment. The infernal demon promised that he would first rip off her limbs, then rip off her skin and shatter all her bones. Then he would slowly rip out her guts. Yuan apologized for interrupting the conversation and said that he had something to discuss with Mr. Boss Bear. Yuan naively asked if the Bear Emperor could spare him some time. Terentia and the infernal demon were at a loss as to who this child was and why he was here. The Bear Emperor yelled at Yuan about who he was and what the hell he wanted.